bush that grew in that crack of dirt between the sidewalk and the brick and stuck this one behind her ear, thorns and all. I thought that should hurt. She parked on an empty stool. Gin and tonic, she said. Not many people ordered mixed drinks here. The Red Fox was a towny bar in a college town, and on a good night, I made maybe a couple of rum and cokes or a screwdriver. Mostly it was cheap, pale beer on tap. That was a good thing because anything more exotic than that would send me to the Mr. Boston Deluxe official bartender's guide I carried back and forth to work. The guide was a present from the mother of one of our friends after she spent the night in our apartment when her son was inducted into Phi Beta Kappa. He went out partying, and we entertained his mother. Go figure. I made him a cake with runny icing. I have a photo of it somewhere. I have no photo of the Red Fox. I mixed up the gin and tonic and sat it on the black lacquer surface in front of her. We didn't use cocktail napkins. Cocktail napkins were a luxury. Scotty, the bar owner, didn't spring for them. I have no idea whether he made a profit or not. Didn't even get to count the money at the end of the night. I had to put it in a paper bag and bury it under a clean trash bag in the waste can under the bar. He counted it in the mornings, and when I relieved him from my evening shift, he was meticulous about chastising me if the total on the cash register didn't match what was in the bag. It was a one-man bar, manned 5 out of 7 nights by a skinny college senior, who drew 25-cent beer, mugs of beer, washed glasses, tossed frozen breaded mushrooms into the deep fryer, sliced questionable lunch meat for sandwiches, waited tables, tended bar, and swept up at the end of the night. I couldn't even go to the bathroom without asking one of the regulars to look out on things. But no one was there. I was tethered to that ancient expanse of oak and grass, the only thing of beauty in the place. Rose, that's what I named her in my head, sat there mumbling. She'd look up once in a while to stare at Richie fishing petals out of his mug with 2 fingers that he waggled like tweezers. That's $1, I said. She glared at me. The drink, it costs $1, I said. My money's gone, she said. She thumped her cast on the bar. Missing. Thump. Stole. Thump. I can't give you that for free, I said. Well, that wasn't quite true. She could get it for free, but I'd have to pay for it. I was still smarting from the week before when the owner took the price of the case of beer out of my paycheck because I let a brassy-haired woman walk out the door with it. He said, for her to pick up the case of long necks and deliver it to him. What was I thinking? I was thinking he told her to. After all, I'd seen them cozied up at the end of the bar. I thought they might be having a thing, but I was the one that got screwed. She said, way before don't ask, don't tell was about sexual preference. Rose slumped against the bar and started to cry. Her boobs rambled around in her thin sack dress. She wove her free fingers into platinum hair ends and pieces sticking out like it was cut with painting shears and no mirror. She didn't wipe her face or anything, just cried and let the tears fall wherever. Here. Richie pushed a damp $1 bill across the bar to me. You know her? I said. He shook his head. A warning. Not now. So, as you might be able to tell, my stories are character-driven. The voice of the character generally comes to me first, and that's the most fun part for me. Is writing about these characters. I do hear their voices, and I read an article in Harvard recently that said hearing voices isn't necessarily bad. So that's good to know. Another story that I would like to talk about is Whatever We'll Do. And that story is a totally different character than a college senior. Whatever We'll Do, a man of prosperous size is an attorney and wins a free trip to a resort for people of prosperous size. And how that story came about was actually from the place rather than the character. But once I had the place, I had to create a character that worked there, that was perfect to be there. And so in this story, the man is a lawyer, and he has a tailor who is a very, very small man, but who really respects this lawyer. And so they worked with each other. The lawyer did the will for the man. And the lawyer also told him that he had won this contest to go to this resort near Cancun. It came about because we were going to Mexico, and I was trying to find the place that we were going, and I'm on Google Maps, and all of a sudden this place pops up just on the map, you know, where they put the little names of where everything is. And on this map, it was specifically a resort for large-sized people. And I thought, how fabulous. Who's going to go there? I need a guy to go there. This will be good. So he's at the resort in the part that I'm going to read now. His name is Ebenezer. Ebenezer hadn't had his shirt off in public since elementary school. He hadn't worn shorts outside his house since junior high. Yet here he was, stretched out on a beach chair between the pool and the turquoise blue water of the Caribbean Sea, dressed in a bathing suit of a color and pattern he wouldn't have dreamed he would buy, let alone wear. His flawless white skin reflected the orange and yellow of the tropical print, as if a blooming dandelion had been gently rubbed just above the elastic of his trunks and left its yellow promise of love behind. No fear stickers were plastered to the cash register at the gift shop, a brand of beach gear, the clerk told him, and fear was what he left behind the minute he walked into the lobby at the resort. Everything was built to eliminate risk for the above-average sized traveler. Chairs were wider, beds were big and sturdy, showers were spacious, and even the beach chairs were made of metal wide enough to stretch out without hanging over. The blue cushions thick on his on his couch at home. In the dining room there were no booths, only sturdy tables and starched cloths. The waiters brought a selection of foods and plenty of them, without once turning up their noses at his choice of food or quantity. A man could eat here, Ebenezer thought. He could indeed. Ebenezer lifted a crooked elbow to look directly at the neck of a Mexican woman in a yellow hotel smock. She couldn't have been more than 4 feet tall. You need lotion? You need lotion? He crooked an elbow to look directly at the... She repeated, holding a bottle of sunscreen by the lid and pointing it at Ebenezer's acre of white back above his trunks. In her other hand, she held a red wooden stool, its seat laced with some kind of reed or cane or woven palm frond. Ebenezer wasn't up on his tropical vegetation. Si, he replied, trying out his Spanish. He could count to 10 and say yes and no, and thanks. Gracias, he added. She tamped the stool's legs into the sand and climbed on. Ebenezer rested his head on his chin, closing his eyes as the woman's strong hand spread the warm lotion across his shoulders and down his back, massaging the lotion into his skin, first in strokes so long her shift dragged across his back, then in short circular motions, wax on, wax off. He tried to think of something other than her hands on his skin. He opened his eyes, scouring the sand near his chair for a crab, a bit of seaweed, anything to distract him, when 10 toes with bright red nails stopped directly in front of him. The toes were poking out of a pair of jute espadrilles with braided straps crossing and circling a pair of ankles that made him catch his breath. The lotion lady stopped abruptly. Lo siento, she said, lo siento. She stepped down from her stool and backed away. Lo siento, she said again. I don't know what you're saying, Ebenezer said. What happened? What did I do? He started to rise, to turn over, but the lotion lady was gone. He sat on the edge of his chair, and the ankles that had taken his breath away were now crossed in front of him. They were attached to a woman covered by a bright blue beach robe and matching hat with oversized sunglasses, who now parked on the chair next to him. I'm sorry, the lady in blue said. Pardon me? Ebenezer said before he really listened. Oh, he added after he realized what she said. For what? No, not me, her. She pointed at the lotion lady, who was now grazing up another guest. She said she was sorry. Lo siento. That's what it means. Well, literally, it means I feel it, sort of like I feel your pain. I'm sorry. Ebenezer rubbed his hand across his chin, and his arm brushed up against his own breast. He realized he was uncovered and grabbed for his towel. How did you say that? Los indiendo? No, lo si into, she said slowly. For what? Well, I usually stay covered in public, he said. So, Ebenezer. The story that I wanted to read in full is called On Cursed Ground. Are you guys up for a whole story? Or? Okay. This story came about from a couple of different things. One is that I went to New Orleans and took an airboat tour, and I took a lot of photos. And one of the photos has a tree reflected across the bayou, so it went all the way across, and it almost looked like a bridge. It was just really, the reflection was like a bridge. And the second thing that happened is that I had a lot of deaths in my family around the same time, and I was trying to deal with that, and I decided what would happen to somebody, what would somebody be like if every guy in their family died within a short period of time, not just what happened in my family, but with everybody. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that grief? So this is On Cursed Ground. They don't talk to her here, but they know who she is. They cross themselves, pretend to brush lint. Today, the post office clerk touched a necklace, likely a totem, Tina thought. Tina's mail had piled up in 3 weeks, 2 tote bags full. She shoved one onto the floor of her pickup and reached for the other. A rusty-eyed Maltese in a pink rhinestone collar pranced up to her. Tina reached out to pet her, but the dog skittered backward, dragged by a retracted leash attached to a turbaned woman in a flowered shift. The woman snatched up the dog, wrapped her neck back like a rooster, narrowed her eyes, and spat on the sidewalk at Tina's feet 3 times. Flint sizzled on concrete. Acid rose in Tina's throat. Spitting, that was a new one. She tossed the second bag on the passenger seat, drove straight home, and crawled into bed. She woke thirsty with a growling stomach. It was just light or almost dark. She couldn't tell which. Her watch said 6. She carried a glass of water onto the screen porch. The sun was in the east. She had slept through until morning. The air was light with promise, but Tina was weighed down. A chain of deaths had wrapped around her, steel links forged so close together they didn't have time to rust in the humidity before the next one was hammered on. She carried the load with every step. She crossed the black dirt of her yard and stood on her listing dock at the water's edge. The cypress on the opposite shore formed a right angle with her reflection, a taunting bridge to nowhere but the soft mud below the surface. She saw herself sinking, the last bubbles of air from her lungs dancing toward the surface of the bayou, her body anchored to the bottom with a concrete block. No, she said aloud, the silence swung. A concrete block was too much, too predictable, too mafia-esque. An old tractor tire. Seriously, here? Maybe a boat battery. She looked around her and saw the perfect weight, an outboard motor, the one that threw a rod last year, its upside-down metal cover, just another mosquito incubator. Jason was going to fix it someday, one day. Won't use it for parts. Too good to throw away, and yet no use to anyone the way it was. The correlation was not lost on her. Tires crunched on the shell road, and the cherry red paint of a Ford Ranger flashed through the trees. Only Mary Jo Mobley could take the turn off at that speed. Shaking on her, no doubt. Mary Jo was the one friend that hadn't turned her back, even when Tina had turned off her phone, thrown weeks of mail unopened in a milk crate on the porch. At first, people brought food, sent cards, but as the deaths piled up, 7 for those who were counting, and Tina certainly was, the sympathetic hugs disappeared, replaced by a circle of fear. What curse had picked off all the men in her family over the last 11 months? Done in one by one, except for 2 uncles lost in a single boating accident, snuffed out, eliminated. A heart attack, an embolism, a spider bite, a stroke, and finally her husband Jason, whose shoulder she leaned on through all the others, his pickup buried by a load of pine from a passing log truck. Glad to see you out of bed, Mary Jo said. I brought beignets, still warm. Was that why you threw half my gravel into the swamp coming in? No, that was just for fun. Mary Jo unpacked her care package, a pound can of Café du Monde, a sweating bottle of half and half, and a dozen eggs. Tina ripped a paper towel from the roll on the kitchen table and chose a pastry from the box. A puff of powdered sugar fell under the table. Mary Jo started coffee. Eggs? One of my clients brought them by this morning, Mary Jo said. She held up the cast iron skillet. Does anybody pay you in dollars? Tina said. Mary Jo frowned and cracked an egg against the side of the skillet. The yellow broke. For that, you get a broken one, she said. Hey, I'm just saying, Tina said. Hey, it's my business model. Eggs today, tomorrow, tomatoes. Or a chicken, Tina said. She tackled another beignet. Mary Jo slapped the egg on a plate and tackled the kitchen counter with a soapy sponge. At least I'm seeing clients. You seem to have alienated all yours. Mary Jo scrubbed the caked-on clump on the formica. What the hell is this? It's like cement. Beans and rice. I didn't ask you to clean it. What are you being so shitty with me for? I came bearing gifts. And criticism. Well, you started it with the egg crack. Well, chalk it up to one of the 5 stages of grief. Take your pick. I'm in all of them simultaneously. Tina pushed past Mary Jo and put her plate in the sink. Mary Jo closed her eyes and took in a deep breath. She had taught Tina to center herself like that, a kind of spiritual reset button when things got off track. Tina was so far off track, she didn't even know. She didn't even bother anymore. Mary Jo was a healer. She'd be a shaman in another era, and maybe she had been. Whatever you believed, she was the only human stubborn enough to venture out here and be abused. Tina touched her on the shoulder. Mary Jo stiffened and opened her eyes. I'm sorry, Tina said. She took a deep breath. Hi, Mary Jo. Thanks for the breakfast. Your energy is a mess, Mary Jo said. No shit. Things weren't such a mess on the porch. They sat in rocking chairs and faced the water. I dreamed about you last night, Mary Jo said. This was the real reason for the visit, Tina realized. She rocked slowly, waiting. You were underwater. Tina shivered. It wasn't that she really took that plunge. She was just she didn't know what she was, numb. How do you do it, Mary Jo? There's no CCTV out here. Swamp can? Oh, I know, Swami can. But we don't all wear purple and see fairies dancing in the wind. You and I are connected. What can I say? She sipped coffee. So tell me, Tina, I don't have to worry about dragging the swamp with a grappling hook. God, Mary Jo, paint me a picture, why don't you? I don't have to paint. Just look at your own stuff. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 on that fancy computer of yours. Actually, there were dozens, hundreds. What started out as a photo essay on the invasion of the water hyacinth and steered her to the overpopulation of the nutria, a ravenous orange-toothed mammal that eats a quarter of its body weight of plants each day. Then she moved on to studying the people trapping and eating the big rodents. For 3 years now, she'd been documenting the families of the deep swamp. She met children who'd seen no one but relatives until she showed up. Women who hadn't left their dry patch of ground in years. It had taken most of the first year to find them and gain their trust. In the last 18 months, they've been showing up at her place, silent canoe with an equally silent man asking to see the photos, a teenager in a john boat inviting her to a baptism. Last year, she'd sat in a deputy skiff while a team searched for a missing teenage boy. Tina knew that the real terror of dragging for a body wasn't there in the water. It was at the water's edge, in the faces of the mothers who hardened their jaws and cussed the dang fool who hadn't come home, while their eyes reflected the waning hope that he'd come loping in the back way any minute, unharmed, so she could beat the tar out of it. Yes, Tina had photos. Point taken. No, I'm not planning to off myself, Tina said, though she could not at this minute promise. Mary Jo sighed. I thought you were going to get out some more. It looks like you slept in those clothes. I did, but before you go all sidekick on me, I went to town yesterday. Tried again. I had 2 bags of mail. Well, so far, so good. And outside the post office, some old woman snatched up her dog and spit at my feet. At them or on them? It matters? At them. 3 times. Warding off evil. Did she say anything? Did you? No and no. I came home and went straight to bed. Slept until 6. Mary Jo turned her chair toward Tina. You know this isn't your fault. The spitting? No. The deaths. The universe isn't punishing you by killing people. And you know this how. Trust me, it's not how it works. Then how does it work, Mary Jo? Some grand plan, a familial expiration date? Well, what if your spirit guide's been telling you? Quiet, a silent thought. Well, give them a chance, Tina. In order to hear them, you have to listen. It seemed like listening was all she'd been doing lately. The voices in her head told her to get out of Dodge, abandon this freelance work, get a job with the studio, a New York magazine, shoot fashion models or charity events. But she never got further than an internet search before she'd find herself distracted by a gator's moan or the flash of a heron or her own numb wrist from cradling her chin in her hand. It wasn't just inertia. She was anchored here. Promise me. Mary Jo shut her truck door and reached for Tina's hand through the open window. Promise me you'll do something today. It's time. Mary Jo was right. It was time to get back to work. Tina poured another cup of coffee and dumped the first bag of mail onto her work table on the porch. The sorting was somehow comforting and easier than she thought. Most of the mail she shredded for compost. She scanned in a few checks with her phone to make a bank deposit, set up folders for 2 new assignments. The obvious cards of condolence she set out in a flower pot. She carried the bag of shredding out back to her composter. Jason had laughed at her the whole time she assembled the rotating barrel she bought to make her own dirt. A waste of your hard-earned cash, he said. The bayou is one big composter. Look around. I have, she told him. Your big composter is digesting whatever's dragged in here, and I don't want my tomato plant sucking up who knows what. Well, like the crawfish you eat don't do that. She wagged a crescent wrench at him. I don't eat the green poop part, she said. And despite his teasing, she fed the composter and filled bastion baskets with rich soil and grew her own vegetables above ground away from the brackish water and its microbes. In time, Jason took over most of the weeding and watering, and the bounty on their kitchen table made it into salads and pastas and skewers of grilled kebabs. She hadn't been out there since Jason died, weeks ago now. The green composter stood on sturdy legs in the sun. Tina gave the turning barrel's handle a good crank, then opened the metal sliding door. It was good and hot inside, just like it was supposed to be. She dumped in the shredded paper and spun the handle to mix it in. While she was out there, she might as well survey the damage from the felt neglect had done to the garden. Her sandals crunched on oyster shells as she walked the path between the raised beds. But where she expected weeds and wilted plants, she saw a perfectly tended garden. Her tomatoes were staked, leafy red and green fruit hanging from supported vines as high as she was tall. Beans on the bush, plump okra, zucchini, big as a man's arm, and not a weed in sight. No overripe or rotting vegetables either. Perfect. She shivered as if a cloud had passed overhead, blocking out the sun. It looked as good as it ever had. As good as when Jason was here. She looked around, looking for what exactly she didn't know. A sign, a glimpse of Jason, some proof that this was real and all the rest a dream. The log truck, the sheriff at the screen door, the funeral, the copper urn. She broke off a sprig of rosemary and rubbed it between her fingers. This was real. And the tomato she picked was ripe, her thumb and forefinger making a perfect dent in the side as she bit into the smooth skin. She finished off the tomato in 3 bites. She turned her shirt into a basket, filling it with tomatoes and beans and peas. She stuck a zucchini under each arm and waddled into the house, laden like a Diego Rivera flower window. She dumped the lot on the kitchen table and rushed into the bedroom, hoping that the urn with Jason's ashes was still there. Tina opened the ribbed aluminum case that held her favorite camera. She lifted the digital SLR to her face. It balanced her, the flat of the body in her palm, the weight of the lens against her fingers. Her first camera, the one her dad sent her from Iraq, had felt just this way. Behind the lens, she was safe. Not everyone understood that, particularly her mother. How can you enjoy the scenery if that stupid camera is always in your face? Her mother was stretched out on a blue canvas chair outside her condo in St. Martin, a book on her lap. I am enjoying it. These kids are such hams, Tina said. The camera trained on a pack of local boys playing King of the Mountain on a swim platform in the bay. They were a tangle of limbs and glistening hair surrounded by an infinite turquoise blue. Here in the bayou, there was no blue water, but it was clear, unless it was green or brown. It changed with the movement of the tide, the alligators that jostled the silt, the algae that bloomed or sank. Tina followed a ripple in the water with her viewfinder. She zoomed in on a nutria gliding toward her dock. It settled in on a nest of vines and yawned, flashing its orange front teeth. Don't go birthing your babies right here, Mama, Tina whispered. It's cursed ground. She snapped the shutter as the nutria yawned. It lifted its head, but when an echoing thud sounded from behind the house, it slipped under the water beneath a boat Tina didn't recognize. From the corner of the house, she heard the thumping again, and a boy no more than 3 feet tall stood with his legs apart, lobbing dirt clods at her composter. Hey, cut it out, Tina said. He opened his left hand and let a handful of dirt fall to the ground. His head tilted down, but his eyes were wide, staring at her. She recognized him by his eyes. She'd only photographed by his blue eyes. She'd only photographed one family with blue-eyed children, the Brissettes. His first name escaped her. How'd you get here? Where's your mama? Tina asked him. He just toed the ground with bare foot and hung his head. That your boat? He nodded. He's with me. A teenage boy stepped from behind the tomato plants with a split oak basket half filled with vegetables, her vegetables. He followed her eyes to the basket, and he lifted his chin, his eyes proud beneath his baseball cap. We'll pay you. She shook her head. Robbie, that's the older boy. She'd been with them when their brother Paul had been pulled from the water. We ain't thieves. I know. Robbie, isn't it? She remembered their mother standing at the water's edge, clutching her cotton blouse as if it was her only hold on reality. How is your mama doing? Well, she done sent us here. You've been taking care of my garden. Tina felt her throat closing up, precursor to tears. Yes, and fault with your loss and all. I don't pay to let food go to waste. Please, take whatever, anything you can use. Tina wiped her eyes with her forearm. And thanks.